Serious, what are some seemingly normal images with disturbing backstories? This photo before the Omagh bombing in Northern Ireland. Almost immediately after this photo was taken, a bomb was set off in the red car beside the boy on his dad's shoulders. The father and child survived miraculously, but the photographer and 28 others died, while around 200 and the pictures of the Dutch girls of Panama girls got lost in the jungle and were for days. A few months later, a backpack with the camera and these photos was found. Since there seems to be some confusion, the link is to an INGENIOUS album with the photos that also details the story in the description, not made by me. At first the photos are innocuous, just two girls on a trip. So I think it fits the ops request.
Hey guys, much like you, I love reading people's stories on Ask Reddit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of weird middle school level, just thought experiment type hypotheticals like nice try Baskin Robbins. I don't find this compelling, so that's why I've made it my mission to trawl and crawl through Ask Reddit and find the very best content and put it in your ears. That's why I'm begging you, like and subscribe. If there's anything I can do to help you out, give you the kind of content that you crave to help you get through your workday, let me know in a comment. But please like and subscribe.
This picture from a hiking trip has an injured woman in the background. She and a friend had gone hiking and slipped off of a waterfall. Too injured to move, they were there for a day before being found. The woman in the photograph survived, but by the time they were rescued, her friend was already dead. Reddit thread about it here, as a lot of people are seeing this. Please always take precautions when you're hiking, climbing, or otherwise going out into nature. Wear eye-catching clothing, take care around dangerous terrain, tell someone where you're going. Stay safe. Also, wording of the first line changed. The 17-year-old went missing on the morning of February 27 when he told family members that he planned to hike stairs, also known as the Stairway to Heaven. The photo was one of a few photos the teen had texted to family members during his hike, and after extensively studying the pictures they noticed a man in one of them. The family is now asking for the public's assistance in identifying the man in the photo, hoping he may have more clues that could possibly lead to Pure's location. Last image of Thai diver Simon Kunin. He was transferring oxygen tanks for 12 boys and their coach, who were trapped in a cave. He got into difficulties and did not have enough air himself. He died after losing consciousness in one of the passageways. This picture was taken by the crew of a ship who saw this girl 11 floating on a disintegrating float. Her whole family was murdered on a sailboat by their hired captain, who left her to drown with the sinking boat. She miraculously made it to the Cork Life float. She drifted for 4 days, no water, no food, being burned by the sun. Upon hearing that she had survived, the captain killed himself. I always thought his death had a certain poetry to it. He'd spent months convincing people that the mountain was dangerously close to erupting. He and his colleagues were taking turns camping out to observe it, and on his last night he swapped shifts with someone who wanted to attend a party. He was right about the eruption being imminent. Sadako Sasaki statue with paper cranes. Sadako was a Japanese girl who became a victim of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima when she was 2 years old. She was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 11 and given no more than a year to live. Sasaki's father, Shigeo, told her the legend of the cranes, and she set herself a goal of folding 1,000 of them, which was believed to grant the folder a wish. Although she had plenty of free time during her days in the hospital, Sasaki lacked paper, so she used medicine wrappings and whatever else she could scrounge, including going to other patients' rooms to ask for the paper from their Get Well presents. Her best friend, Shizuko Homamoto, also brought paper from school for Sasaki to use. A popular version of the story is that Sasaki fell short of her goal of folding 1,000 cranes, having folded only 644 before her death, and that her friends completed the 1,000 and buried them all with her. There was a tradition in Victorian England to take photos of dead people, often dressed in their best clothes and posed as if taking a family portrait. It's really unsettling looking at these. Sometimes the whole photo looks completely normal except one person looks a bit off, and you only realize when you look closer. It's also interesting because it shows how normal death was back in an era where people weren't hospitalized for illness, and so many children died in infancy. Death was a part of life, and most people had experienced death directly multiple times, so recording it was seen as recording normality as part of the grieving process. I remember an earlier thread with this topic, and this was one of the most memorable. It looks like just an ordinary photo of a father happy to see his daughter graduate. However, the guy on the left is Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, who killed 10 people over the span of about 25 years, all the while being a beloved member of his community. He was a security system technician, a Cub Scout leader, a church president, a city worker, a happily married father of 2, and a sadistic serial killer. The idea that pretty much any normal-looking person you see on the street could actually be a total psycho really heaves me out.
I turned 36 this year, and I decided to focus on my physical fitness, so I bought a swim club membership. The only problem was, most of the time when I go swimming, I wind up getting an ear infection. So it turns out that normal earplugs, they kind of irritate your ear canal, they don't really work, they don't keep the water out, but there is an amazing kind of earplug called Mack Pillow Soft Silicone earplugs that, they feel great, they keep the water out 100%, they're reusable, and they don't irritate your ear canal at all, no issues. If you've ever had a severe ear infection, you don't want to experience that again. It can permanently damage your hearing if you're unlucky. So investing in these earplugs is definitely a good idea. Also, when my baby was crying later this year and I could not get to sleep, I used the same earplugs and they worked great. I was able to sleep right next to a crying baby. So be sure to click my affiliate link and purchase some of these Max earplugs today.
That's why I tell myself and my family to not climb on top of anything while we are at a mountain or something. My brother likes to climb on top of fences and explore, and it gives me the worst anxiety ever. Just the thought of him slipping while on mountain freaks me the fuck out. For anyone who isn't aware, the way they caught Dennis Rader was odd. He was basically taunting the police, daring them to catch him, leaving little dolls with tied hands and feet to symbolize his victims, but apparently that wasn't enough. In one of his letters to the police, because of course he sent letters, what kind of self-respecting murderous wackadoodle doesn't send letters? He asked if they'd be able to trace him if he sent them a floppy disk. The police, who at this point probably couldn't believe their luck, replied that it would be perfectly safe, so he actually did it. They found some metadata on a deleted Microsoft Word document on the disk that linked to his church and said it was last modified by Dennis. It took them all of 5 minutes to check that there was a Dennis Rader working at the church, and then he became their prime suspect. Fun fact that links back to the original photo, though that wasn't considered enough to bring him in, and they needed a DNA sample. They used DNA from a pap smear that his daughter had done at the Kansas State University Medical Center while she was a student there, which showed a familial link to DNA found at the crime scenes. That was enough for them to arrest him. This seems to have caused a lot of fuss in the comments below. In short, all clinics are legally required to keep your tissue samples after a pap smear for about 5 years, and it's legal because it was done via court order and be done with a specific suspect in mind, rather than just a random pull on a database. In that sense, it's really not significantly different to what would have happened if Rader had a tissue sample of his own on file due to something like a biopsy, a pap smear, and being too cheap to buy a new floppy disk. That's how they got one of the most notorious serial killers of the past 50 years. As reported in Atlantic, Rader was apparently very upset that the police had lied to him about it being safe. I need to ask you, how come you lied to me? How come you lied to me? Rader asked. Because I was trying to catch you, Ken Landwehr, the homicide detective widely credited with catching him, answered coolly. My dad is from Northern Ireland and his brothers still live there. It's really weird hearing them talk about the troubles. I actually lived there for a few years when I was young, but was sheltered from all of that stuff. We lived in a village and there was only one bombing, which I don't even remember. My dad worked in Belfast though as an electrician, and there were parts of Belfast his employers wouldn't allow him to go to as he was ex-British military. You can join the Irish or British military in Northern Ireland. His employers considered it a genuine risk to his life if certain people had realized that such were tensions. This was late early October 2nd, 2024. It just sounds so surreal when they talk about it. Stuff like this happening this recently in a developed country, especially one I have direct experience with, is just so weird. I never met him, but Tyler is my second cousin. My dad Amp, his mum are first cousins. My parents went down to Florida a few months before this happened, and my mum couldn't stop talking about how weird Tyler acted. She said his dad asked him to go grab another folding chair from storage and he looked at him like he wanted to kill him. Obviously those interactions meant a lot more after he killed my dad's cousin Amp, cousin-in-law. Updated to the correct cousin lineage. FBI seeking information images. These are images that are just everyday random things that by helping identify you could aid in rescuing a child. Pictures of people the FBI would like to chat with about their careers in pornography. I try to post this whenever I see a topic of this nature and every 6 months or so to tell Simone should get that sweet karma today. I'm not affiliated with law enforcement, just would like these children rescued and these criminals removed from society. Thanks Arigbai and Askew for linking to Trace and Object, which is the Europol version of this. Thanks to you Peter Van Sickerfer. The man he swapped with was Harry Glicken, who took the photo, and who was devastated when the volcano erupted and blamed himself for Johnston's death. He died in a different eruption in Japan, and he and Johnston are the only two American volcanologists to die in a volcanic eruption. He also left to attend an interview, not a party. He did not get the job. The photo of the Uruguay rugby team in the plane before takeoff. Article photo if you weren't forced to be traumatized reading this in high school. In 1972 a plane holding a rugby team and their family crashed in the Andes Mountains and they were stuck there for months, forced to eat their dead family members, and other horrific things. They were also called monsters for doing what they could to survive after some returned to civilization. Book called Alive. This is a photo of the 3 unsung heroes that put their life on the line to prevent Chernobyl from being a worse disaster than it already was. If not for these 3 men in the picture, Alexei Ananenko's second left and soldiers Valery Bezbalov center and Boris Baranov far right, millions of lives would have been lost during the catastrophe of Chernobyl. 10 days after the meltdown, the plant's water cooling system had failed, and a pool had formed directly under the highly radioactive reactor. Without cooling, the lava-like substance could easily melt through the remaining barriers, dropping the reactor's core into the pool. If this would have happened, it might have set off steam explosions, firing radiation high and wide into the sky, spreading across parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. In the photograph, Engineer Alexei together with Valery and Boris are fitted with protective gear after they volunteered to dive down into the waters and drain the fluid near the reactor during the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Pripyat, Ukraine in 1986. The mission was successful, and while the damage was still vile, the 3 heroes prevented what could have been a much more devastating event. Surprisingly and luckily enough, all of the 3 men survived. Both shockingly survived. Well, less pleasantly the young brother Sean, who was 12 at the time of the photo, later committed suicide. It seems that he likely suffered the brunt of the electrical blast. Unbelievably, they were 2 of many people struck by lightning that day. Significantly more detail can be found in this article for those interested. It shouldn't need to be said. But if your skin is tingling and your hair is standing up like that outside for seemingly no obvious reason, you may want to get to lower ground or fully encased shelter immediately. It still doesn't entirely explain the sequence of events. Why did one of them call 911 within hours of one of the photos, only to call again 10 days later? And why was there a burst of photos taken in the middle of the night also 10 days later, along with another 911 call? You're absolutely right, though very horrible.
This year, like I said, I'm having a midlife crisis. I've started a YouTube channel and I'm on a big health kick. One thing that I found is very easy to eat, very easy to prepare, is I heat up chickpeas with chicken broth and tikka masala. And there are two schools of thought about how you should eat beans. Some people believe you should buy the dry beans and soak them, but I tried that and it was a disaster. So I buy canned beans every time. And if I'm opening like 2 cans a day to be on this diet, it is a massive pain in the ass if the can has this jagged metal edge. I'm worried if like little bits of metal are getting into my food and going to slice up my intestines. So I found this special can opener that actually opens the can in a way that is completely safe, no metal's getting in your food, and is 1,000 times better than any other can opener I've ever used. So if you wind up, opening a lot of cans for whatever reason, maybe you've got a cat or something, you must buy this can opener from my affiliate link.
This image of a man standing shirtless behind the fence in a summer afternoon light, looking like something out of a family album of sorts, and a link. Hope it works. This image is an recreation of the Time magazine cover from 1992, where the same man, Fikret Ali, was photographed in the same place as an emaciated prisoner of Tenpoya concentration camp during Bosnian War of 1990-95. He survived. The building behind him is now a community center, without any plaques or memorials to the victims of one of the most notorious concentration camps in Bosnia. Holy shit, this turned out to be way more interesting than I expected. Answering some inbox questions, Ali's war and post-war fate was described by Ed Valiemi in his The War is Dead, Long Live the War book. He lived in Slovenia for some time, and was obviously affected by the ordeal. I'm not from Bosnia, but I did a photographic documentary on the subject of camps and killing grounds of Bosnian war and their post-war fate, so I'm kind of familiar with the subject. I'm kind of hesitant with posting my work here, but if you're interested, feel free to message me. I remember that a few college students were hiking in New Jersey. They were being followed by this bear and it eventually started to chase them. They decided to split up, but it caught one of them. They all met up shortly after and realized one was missing. Dutch teenager Gary Sloak and his mother, Petra Langeveld, took this selfie and posted it on Facebook moments before Malaysia Airlines flight took off in July 2014. A few hours later, the plane crash was shot down by Russians, killing all 200, and this one's called the most beautiful suicide. At first glance, it looks like a woman resting peacefully till you realize that's a car roof twisted around her like bedsheets. She jumped from the top of the Empire State Building and just happened to land in this very graceful, peaceful way. Rosalynn Carter, First Lady of Jimmy Carter, had the unfortunate luck of being photographed not only with John Wayne Gacy but also Jim Jones, of the Jonestown Massacre. The photos might be the kind of things you'd see on office walls for middle managers or in restaurants, but due to events which would later come to life, they have sinister connotations.
I turned 36 this year, and I decided to focus on my physical fitness, so I bought a swim club membership. The only problem was, most of the time when I go swimming, I wind up getting an ear infection. So it turns out that normal earplugs, they kind of irritate your ear canal, they don't really work, they don't keep the water out, but there is an amazing kind of earplug. It's called Mack's Pillow Soft Silicone earplugs that, they feel great, they keep the water out 100%, they're reusable, and they don't irritate your ear canal at all, no issues. If you've ever had a severe ear infection, you don't want to experience that again. It can permanently damage your hearing if you're unlucky. So investing in these earplugs is definitely a good idea. Also, when my baby was crying later this year and I could not get to sleep, I used the same earplugs and they worked great. I was able to sleep right next to a crying baby. So be sure to click my affiliate link and purchase some of these Mack's earplugs today.